Hi everyone, it's Tammy with Shabby Fabrics. I have a beautiful quilt to share with you today. This is called Stars Above. We used Primitive Gatherings 2 collection by Moda to make this beautiful quilt. I do have kits available. We have our backing fabric is here. Again, this is a limited number of kits. As with Moda, we have our fabric is already pre-bought. It's already here in our building, so we got our kits ready to go. I can't get more fabric. So just be aware that if you go to buy a kit and it's already gone, that's why, that they've sold quickly. We did have this quilt a couple of years ago, and we went to remake this quilt. And you know, whenever I go through a pattern, I look at it with fresh eyes. So I have come up with some easier techniques on how to put this quilt together, and I wanted to bring those to you today. So we do have a pattern available. If you would like to purchase the pattern, there will be a QR code on the pattern, and you can use your phone to scan that, and it'll bring you straight to this video. Also in the kit, you will have a pattern will be included with your kit. And again, a QR code will be on that pattern. So if you need to refer back to this video, we've got you covered. Just scan that QR code and it'll bring you straight back here. All right, so let me show you some of the elements in this quilt. All right, the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna make some star points. You're gonna make a lot of star points. So when we were cutting this quilt, we cut all of the red and blue squares and we threw them into a bag and we shook it up, and then we just randomly started pulling them out. That's how we get this really scrappy appearance in the quilt. Trying to plan a scrappy quilt is sometimes very difficult because these blocks are going to be rotated. So we didn't pay attention to any sort of direction, how fabrics were laying. We just used it as it came out of the bag. All right, so let's look at that. I have a couple of ways to do sew and flip that I'm going to share with you. The first one is we're going to draw the line. So let's go over some notions that I've got on my table here. I have a rotary cutter, of course, a fresh blade. You're going to be cutting through multiple layers of fabric. Fresh blade is amazing to put in. You'll be amazed at how easy your rotary cutter is to use once you do replace that blade. A small pair of Karen K. Buckley scissors. We like these for snipping threads. I am putting a seam ripper on the table. I'm going to try really, really hard not to use it, but it is on my table. It's always next to me at my machine. I have some diagonal seam tape here by Cluck Cluck Sew. This is very, very useful for doing sew and flip, and we're going to talk about that in just a couple of minutes. I do have a top stitch needle by Schmetz. An 80-12 needle is a good size to use. We have a blade saver. A blade saver is something when you're chain piecing a bunch of things together, you can easily clip them all apart using a recycled rotary blade. So those old blades you're taking out to replace, save them. You can stick them into a blade saver and reuse that blade over and over again. I have a seam guide setter here. A seam guide setter is going to help you get a very accurate 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch seams are very important when piecing this many pieces into a quilt. So you're going to want to make sure your 1/4 inch is accurate. If you struggle with that, I'm going to show you how to use a seam guide setter and use these little guidelines stickies to stick on your machine so you have a perfect 1/4 inch. I also have a refill pack of the seam guides. So once you buy the seam guide setter, you don't need to repurchase that because this plastic piece is reusable. Just keep it in a drawer next to your machine so you always have it and it's handy. And then if you run out of your little stickies, you can just buy the refill pack here. I have binding clips because we use those when we do our binding, or a fill thread set. I like the Carrera black and white thread set. It gives you a spool of black, a spool of white, and a spool of silver. We use those in the sewing room here for piecing almost 100% of the time. We love Orifil thread on our BERNINAs. Well, the BERNINAs love the thread. We love it too, but the BERNINAs really love it. I have my Clover extra fine patchwork pins. These are important for accurate pinning. And I do have a magnetic pin cushion, which is just an incredible tool. It picks up pins quickly, especially after I've been piecing and pinning. Sometimes I'm dropping pins. I just run this magnetic pin cushion along the floor around my machine, and it just instantly picks those pins up, so I'm not searching for them. And a friction pen. I'm going to use a Creative Grids 1.5 inch by 12.5 inch ruler. I like this for drawing some lines. I was just looking for a straight edge for trimming. We like this ruler because it's got a really nice 1/4 inch on it, and then it's got a non-slip surface on the back. It's textured, and that helps that ruler stay in place and not slide away from you. I also have a folded corner clipper. That's another way to do a sew and flip if you don't want to draw the line. Drawing lines is easy. It's easy to sew on a line, but I know drawing lines on a lot of squares is tiring, of course. I get tired of drawing lines. So I'm going to show you drawing the line first. So I'm just going to use a friction pen. I'm going to place my straight edge corner to corner and simply draw the line. I'm going to place it on my square like this. You can pin this if you want to or not. If you're a new quilter, a beginner quilter, I recommend that you anchor this down. Just keep your pin away from your sewing line. That way it's not going to get in the way of your presser foot. I'm just going to set this pin out here in this outer corner because I know I'm going to start here and come to here, and that way I'm not going to run into my pin. All right, so let's go to the machine and actually stitch that. Okay. All right, so now let's talk about pressing and trimming. So now what we're going to do is we're going to bring this back. And again, remember I was telling you about this 1/4 inch on this ruler. I'm going to use the 1/4 inch mark right on there. I'm going to trim this. All right, let's press this. Today I have a Panasonic iron on set with me today. This is a 360, Panasonic 360. It's cordless, and I really like that. It allows a lot of mobility, and it does have steam if I need that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to set that seam. I'm going to open this up, and I'm just going to press this with my finger, just finger pressing this, and set this iron right on top. I'm being very careful not to distort this seam. I don't want it to be out of shape by an iron. Once you get that where you want it, you can hit that with a little bit of steam. Just hold it for a second. Look how flat that is. Perfect. All right, so now we need to put another square on this side. So now let's talk about the folded corner clipper. Folded corner clipper is a just amazing tool. This is designed by Susan Nelson for Creative Grids. I love this tool. I use it all the time. So I'm going to set my square where I want it. So I am lining up my edges perfectly like this. I'm going to place the folded corner clipper on the square. This is a 1 3/4 inch square. So I'm going to find 1 3/4 on my tool is right here, 1/4 inch below 1.5. And I'm looking over here on this edge where this dotted line is lining up with the edge of my fabric. I know if this is lined up and this is lined up, I'm lined up perfectly on my square. So I'm going to hold my ruler, I'm going to pick up my rotary cutter, and now I'm just going to simply cut. Now I'm going to sew corner to corner. So if I have a 1/4 inch, I can just sew corner to corner and I'm good to go. So again, let's put a pin in here. So now I'm going to pin this a little bit differently. See where I place that pin? I put it at the end of the seam because I'm going to start right here and I'm going to sew down to this corner. But I know that by the time I get here, about halfway through, these two pieces are going to start coming apart and they're going to start walking away from each other. So I'm going to set a pin there to make sure they stay together. So when I get there, they still line up. All right, let's go sew that. All right, so now I can just simply go to the iron because I don't need to cut it. We did that ahead of time. Again, I'm just going to hold my iron, set that seam, use my fingers to finger press this open right where I want it, and set that iron back on there. Give it a little shot of steam. Perfect. All right, so we have our first star point done. Okay, so now let's talk about, I told you I was going to tell you one more way to do this. This is the diagonal seam tape by Quilt Look Sew. This stuff is amazing. You can see here, when I unroll this, you've got 3 lines. You've got a black line, red line in the middle, and another black line. Your black lines on the outside have a 1/4 inch on them. This black line is exactly a 1/4 inch away from the red mark in the center. All right? So let's take a blue square. I'm going to do a blue one this time. I'm going to just set this together like this. Let's stick a little pin in this outside corner just to hang on to the square. I want this to stay right there. And now I'm going to use the Quilt Look Sew tape to sew this so I'm not drawing a line. All right, so we're here at the machine. And I'm going to line up this bottom corner with this red mark. Now we have ahead of time, I have installed this tape on here. So this red mark, let me go on this side, this red mark is exactly where my needle is. So I know that's where my needle's coming down. This is a 1/4 inch away, and this is a 1/4 inch on the other side. So I'm going to line up my square. Let me put my needle down. There we go. All right. That's where I'm going to start, right on my point, right here by my needle. However, you see this point is way off. So we're going to rotate this around until it gets to the red line, just like that. Okay. Let me put the presser foot down. All right. So now we're ready to sew. And I'm just going to follow this red line right here with this corner. All right, let's go ahead and do that. So then we would go ahead and use our 1/4 inch tool, trim this, and press in exactly the same way that we did the red ones. All right, perfect. Continue doing that for all of your little squares. All right, just keep sewing, chain piecing them together. You'd put your next one on here, sew and flip, not worrying about anything with directional fabric. Okay, all right, so let's set these aside. I think I need this one actually. So let me show you the blocks in this quilt. There are 2 blocks that make up this quilt. There's a 9-patch block. Let me show that to you. This is the 9-patch block and a corner block. So we're going to build the 9-patch block first. All right. So we have a center square. I have star point above. You see how these fabrics match? I'm not going to worry about that in this quilt. We have this one, and this one, and this one. Okay. Then I have 2 blue star points. You see how these are turned the opposite direction? All right. And then I have 2 white squares. There we go. All right. Just like that. This makes up a 9-patch block. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and piece this with you on camera. All right. So I want to show you on this one how we're pressing this. So I'm going to turn this over so that you can see how we're pressing this block. We're pressing these seams out, we're pressing these seams in, and we're pressing these seams out. All right, so let's go ahead and assemble this. This piece is going to come on like this. Now you're looking at this, and you can see that this piece is just ever so slightly smaller. Let me put it over here so you can see that. You see how this piece is not exactly perfect because you've done sew and flip on these corners, right? Let me show you how to fix that. I'm not going to pull this piece down and line up with the red because you see how that really brings this point off. This side of this square has not been touched yet, right? So I know that this is accurate. This is an accurate edge. This is an accurate edge. I haven't sewn anything to this square. So the two I'm going to line up are these two right here. You see how these points are slightly off? I did this on purpose so that you could see this. This is off here and it's off right here. I'm not going to worry about that. What I need to sew is 1/4 inch here to here. All right, so I'm going to pin this and know that this is off, and that's off on purpose. Okay, so I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to sew 1/4 inch from here to here. Now let's talk about how to get a good 1/4 inch when you're sewing these blocks together, because there's a lot of seams in this, right? I'm going to use a seam guide setter, and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance with my seam guide setter. All right, so I'm going to show you how to hook this up to your machine. It's very simple, very quick, and we're going to set a little guidelines in there, set it right on your machine, and you're going to be good to go for the rest of this quilt. All right, so here I am at the machine. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a lens wipe. You need anything that has a little bit of alcohol in it because your machine has oil. What I want is I want this little guideline seam guide to stick to the bed of my sewing machine, but I already know if I've been oiling it or cleaning it, this has got oil on it and it's not going to stick very well. So I'm just going to clean this quickly with a lens wipe. I'm going to take my thread and hang on to it. I'm going to put my needle down like this. This has got a little hook in it on this upper left-hand corner, and it says needle right there. So I'm going to hook this around my needle, just like that. Get my thread out of there. All right, now I can move this, I can manipulate this, right? It's hooked around my needle, and I'm going to line this up with a 1/4 inch. So I'm looking at my 1/4 inch mark here. I'm looking at the marks on my sewing machine on this plate to make sure that this is actually straight. Okay, now I'm going to take my seam guide just like this. That's exactly where I want that. So I'm just going to take this seam guide. I'm going to set it right in the track, right there. I'm going to press it down because that's where I want it. This is my 1/4 inch. Let's release the seam setter. There we go. This is perfectly set now for 1/4 inch. You can see on my Cluck Cluck sew tape how that black line is right there. That is my 1/4 inch. I know, just another confirmation that this is set exactly where I want it. Okay, so now let's stitch our piece with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, so we've got this one sewn down. Perfect. Let's attach the next one on the other side. So again, you guessed what I'm lining up already, right? I'm lining up these edges that have not been touched yet. Okay, I can see my red peeks out a little bit. I'm okay with that. I'm way okay with that. Let's pin that. And now I'm going to go stitch that. I'm also going to go ahead and stitch this to this, and I'm going to sew these onto here. All right, exactly the same way. When I come back, we'll get this whole thing pressed out and we'll piece together a star block. Okay, so I've got these rows are sewn together and I did chain piece these like I was telling you about. I wanted to actually demonstrate how the blade saver worked. So we have an old blade in here and you can see I've just chain pieced these together and I can just quickly snip these apart. How amazing is that? Your finger cannot get down in there, but the thread goes right in. If you have little ones and you're worried about that, take this apart. And this will store right inside here. The magnets hang on to this like this. And it does come with a little screwdriver to undo it, to take the blade in and out. All right. Very, very clever. We always store it with the little screwdriver down in there so we know where it is and we don't lose it. And that's how we do that. All right, so let's go ahead and get these pressed out. So again, I'm referencing this. In the pattern, we have arrows to show you exactly how you're pressing these. All right, so this one, we're going to press these to the white. Okay, so you can see I have the white facing up towards me. I'm going to press, flip that over, and press again. Now I'm not using steam here. I don't want to take the chance that I'm going to stretch out these seams. There's this one. This is the bottom. And again, I'm going towards the blue points. So I'm just going to flip this over and do that one more time. There we go. Let's do the top one. This one is going towards the red. So we're going to have the red up when we do this, like this. And it flips right over. All right, there's our star block. Let's go ahead and put this together, just like a 9 patch. So now, when I look at this, these seams are going to nest perfectly together, just like that. Again, I'm matching my white. Do you see how I'm watching this white on this corner? This one's going to drop a little bit. I made these wonky on purpose to show you that you do not have to have exact perfect sew and flip points to make this quilt work. All right, you just compensate for it as you're piecing this together. I'm now going to nest these seams right here. So I'm only worrying about the nested seam right now. I'm not even looking at the end. Now I'm going to go to the end. I'm going to make these edges even, and I'm going to put a pin there to remind that fabric, I need you to stay there. Okay, I'm also going to put a pin in the center of this to hang on to these points in the center. All right, so I'm going to go sew a 1/4 inch here to here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put the other side on before we press this out. Let's put the bottom onto our star here. Same way I did before. All right, we have our points together. Let's take a look. Oh, that looks great. All my intersections are nested exactly right. And I want to point something out. Do you see how these star points right here are floating points? We call these floating points. We did that on purpose to make this more beginner friendly. You do not have to match this point here in the center with this block. I love that about this quilt. This makes this so much easier to do. You see how my blue points do not match tip to tip with my red? They overlap. This again is another user-friendly thing about this pattern. It's very beginner-friendly. Okay, so let's press this. So I'm going to press towards my top and bottom row. Seam goes up, this seam goes down. So I'm going to put my row up. That's what I'm pressing towards. I'm going to set my seam. I'm going to fold this over, finger press that out, and then press. Just like that. This wool pressing mat just is amazing. It really helps you press your block from both sides because the wool heats up, grabs the heat from that iron, and presses your block. So you're really pressing it from both sides when you use a wool pressing mat. I love that. It gets our seams nice and flat. We use a wool pressing mat in the sewing room every single day. Our ironing boards have them. We love them. All right, there we go. Now I have a perfect star block, just like that. So to make one large block, I need 4 of those, and I've done 2 more ahead of time, all exactly the same, just like that. Okay, so let's set those kind of to the side. The next block we're going to do is a corner block. All right, so you're going to make red corner blocks and blue corner blocks. You're going to press them differently. Just like you're going to make blue stars and you're going to make red star blocks. The red blocks are pressed like this. The blue ones are pressed differently. That's so that they all nest together. I love that part. So this is a blue corner block. Let's take a look at how I press this. Okay. All right. Let's put this back up so we have it for reference, and let's lay some pieces out. All right, I have a star point. Again, my points don't match this because I want them to be scrappy, right? I have a long side and I have a short side, and I'm missing my 2.5-inch square. Perfect. Okay, here we go. So now I'm going to put this together just like a little 4 patch. This to this, this to this. Here we go. All right, so I have these sewn. Let's take a look at how we're going to press this, because I know instinctually you want to press this to the white. I believe, yep, we press this back to the star points. So I'm going to press this to the star point. This is important so that all of your seams nest together when you assemble this block. I'm going to just hang on to that for a second. There we go. This one I'm going to press to the star point as well, just like this. All right, let's put it back together. Let's look at this for confirmation. We have it together correctly, and we do. I can visually see that. All right, so I'm going to put this one on top of here. I'm going to nest these seams in the middle, stitch this, and when I come back, we'll attach the 2 sides. Okay, have this together. We're going to press this up. This is going up. I need to push this seam up. So I'm going to put this piece on top because that's what I'm pressing towards. Heat that up. Flip this over. just like that. All right, so now let's add the short side to this. All right, so now what I'm lining up with my white corner on this end. I'm going to put a little pin there. Hang on to that. Now I'm going to line it up with this, and you can see how perfect that fits. If this did not fit perfectly, your seam allowance is probably a little bit too big or a little bit too small. So that's a good self-check here to make sure that your seam allowance is correct. These two pieces should fit together exactly like they do. I'm going to pin that seam allowance just to make sure he stays like that. All right, so I'm going to go sew this here to here. So how am I pressing this? Well, I'm pressing this down. I'm pressing this to this star point. So I'm going to turn the star up. I'm going to press it just like this. See that? When I press like this from the top, I'm not pressing it from the back. When I press from the top like this, I'm making sure that I'm not taking a tuck right here in this. That's very easy to do when you're pressing a folded seam on top of itself. It's very easy to take a tuck right here. So that's why I'm pressing with this on top to watch this and make sure I'm not taking a tuck right here. Okay, so I have some seams in this. Let's add the long corner, and that is going to fit almost perfectly. Here we go. So first of all, let's line up one side and pin this together. Hang on to that. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to work with this side over here. And I'm going to put a pin here. Now I have this long piece. You see how it's ever so slightly, this is too big compared to this, because now I've got multiple seams in this, right? So I'm just going to give this gentle pressure. You see how that immediately fits together? I'm going to grab this with my fingers and pin it. I'm going to take this one, same thing. Grab it and pin it. All right, this is how this looks pinned together. I'm just going to go sew corner to corner. So, how are we pressing this? Back toward the block. All right, so let's put the block up. Heat this seam up. And now press it over, making sure that we're not taking a tuck anywhere along here. I'm going to give that a little shot of steam just to coax it over the way I want it to be. I want this block nice and flat, just like that. Okay. All right. That's all there is to making a corner block. Very simple. So I have 4 corner blocks. Yay! Here we go. Let's lay a block out. Let me clear the table a little bit here. This is a big block. These blocks are 18.5 inches, so they're large. All right, so we have a star point, and now we have our corner blocks. Just like this. Let's add another star point here. There we go. You see how I'm rotating these blocks all around? Here's a star point. I have a corner block. See how I rotated that to hit here. This is my corner block. I'm going to rotate to hit here. And this one, the center square. Where's my center square? Well, it's just a solid piece. Not a problem. There we go. Visually confirm. Yes, this is what I want. If we don't like certain blocks touching, simply pick it up, move it, and put it over here. There we go. So if there's a fabric that you don't like in the block, whatever, rotate it around. Just play with this. Have fun. This is such a scrappy quilt. This is so much fun. I love this quilt. All right, so now it's just very simple to put together. So let's take a look at that, this first row. That's all I'm going to do with you on camera is just put together one row. I want you to see how all of these seams now nest with each other. This one goes together. This one nests together. It's just like a puzzle. Everything's just locking into place. I love that. It just makes a quilt come out so much better. It's so much easier when you're not fighting seams that are sitting on top of each other or not coming out right. That's frustrating, and I know that. I love a good nested seam. All right, so I'm going to sew this corner to corner, and I'll be right back. Let's take a look at this. Oh, that is beautiful. All right, let's add a corner block to it. Now let's take a look at how these nest together. You see this seam here? Nests right here perfectly. Let's pin that. And let's pin this one, nest together. I love that. All right. And this block goes right here to this one. Pin the end so those edges don't come apart. All right, we're ready to sew corner to corner. All right, here we go. So now, how do I press this? Let's press these seams open, all right? Because they're going to have to come together with this whole block. They're also going to come together with your blue star and red corner block. So I'm going to press these seams open. I'm going to double check visually. I have hit every single one of these intersections exactly like I wanted to. I'm going to turn this over. And I'm going to open this seam up with my finger. Now I've got this Panasonic iron and it's got a really nice tip on it for pressing seams open. If I set this on here and I just kind of wiggle my iron, it just kind of opens that seam for me. I love that. I'm going to give that a little shot of steam and just hang on to it for a second. Okay, more than a second. Maybe that was 10 seconds? I don't know. I hold on to it for a little bit, not a second. All right, that one I'm going to heat up a little bit. Might make it easier to come through here. Start and press it open. There we go. All right. And press it again from the top. That is beautiful. Look at that. Okay, that is great. I love that. It looks perfect. All my seams are nesting together. All my intersections are great. This looks good. All right, so now let's say that we had this block complete and we had a blue star with a red corner. So I have made one blue star block and red corner blocks, and this would go together like this. So let's rotate our block. You see how you can rotate this around and it still looks the same? I like that. Okay. These two blocks, when they come together, I want you to look. These seams are both pressed open. These intersect, and these are pressed open. This one just hits a long strip. This one hits a long strip as well, so they're not intersecting with anything. So this whole quilt will just lock together when you put your rows together. Everything's going to come together. This is the Stars Above quilt. I hope you have learned a few tips on how to piece blocks together accurately. Use that 1/4 inch seam guide. Make sure you're watching that 1/4 inch. Sew and flip If you're tired of drawing the lines, don't forget about that Cluck Cluck Sew Tape or Creative Grids Folded Corner Clipper. Both tools are amazing, and you're not drawing a bunch of lines on all those squares. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again on another Shabby Fabrics tutorial.